welcome to DWF, and we are here with Jacquelynn Buck today of Photography by Jacquelynn Buck, and she is going to give us a little bit of inside tips and tricks on what she does with portraiture and wedding photography.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yay!
My market area is that I am a military spouse, so I move with my husband every 3 years or so, and so I'm restarting my business almost every 3 years, 3 to 4 years, yeah. And it can be a blessing and a curse because military life is challenging in that we're moving, but it's also amazing in that the word of mouth network is fabulous. So working in a military community, and you don't have to be military to work in a military community. If you have one, I think it probably works the same way. You do a good job for somebody and they're going to tell, their friend, and then they're going to tell their friend, and then you've got this whole network of people that have the military in common already, so feel sort of kindred about that, and then add to that the photography, and it's kind of a no-lose situation if you do a good job, right? But I think that the other thing that's great about is it's taught me about what's most important when marketing and when restarting a business. So when I move to a new area, I hit the ground running 3 months before we get there, in terms of marketing. And I think that gives me an edge over the competition in that I'm really getting more savvy about what works, what doesn't, and implementing that right away. It is crazy. I'll tell you what it is, though, is it used to be prohibitive for me. I used to think of it like huge challenge, can't overcome this, how am I going to do this, this is ridiculous. And then all I had to do was think about it in the positive light and say, okay, I don't need to worry about why this sucks. I want to worry about how I can make this work for me. And so what I've done is I've shifted my thinking into being a national photographer versus a local one. So I keep markets in the places we've lived. I go back to those markets. My military clients move as much as I do. So if my client moves to Kansas City, maybe I go to Kansas City and do her daughter's senior portraits, which is exactly what I did this summer. It was a client I did a family session for in Georgia. They moved to Kansas City. I flew out there and did her senior pictures. And that's how I keep my market. So it's never local, it's national. And that somehow that shift in verbiage is just like made all the difference. So it is challenging, and my national client base requires lots of travel, and it's awesome, but it's exhausting. But then about a year or so after we've settled into a place, I start getting more local business. So it kind of ebbs and flows. Sometimes I'm doing more national, sometimes I'm doing more local, sometimes I'm doing both. Totally depends on where we are in the move cycle. They change in accordance with the travel involved to get to that place, and I do try to do multiple bookings in one location, so I'm not just going out for one session. I might say, hey, I'm coming out for this session, and I'll put on Facebook or wherever that I'll be out there, and if people know people or if there's some sort of connection to somebody, I will get some bookings in that area. I'll be in New Mexico, in Albuquerque in the spring, and I'm doing a portrait session for a family. It's a couple who their daughter and family lived in Germany, and I did their portraits in November. So it's just this crossover that I had no idea would actually happen the way it has. So my prices pretty much stay consistent from a print standpoint and from a session standpoint, but then I will build in the travel if it's applicable. Yes, absolutely. When I've done portrait sessions for clients, I will do referral credit. So if they refer me, I will give them a credit for their next session, which I think really helps. But I also think that people just refer me because they've had a great experience. So I think that, while I offer this credit, I don't always get taken up on it in terms of they're not doing it for the credit. They're doing it because they just love it and they think that, I want to pass this experience on to somebody else. But yeah, I would say that most of my, most often it starts with one person, and then that person has a great experience, and then they're telling their friends. And I do encourage it, and I do ask for it, but sometimes it just falls into my lap. I have a portrait client in Valdosta whose sister lives in Boston who is getting married in July, and I'm doing their wedding because her sister said, "Do you do weddings?" I'm like, "I absolutely do weddings." She's like, "Well, I'm gonna refer you to my sister." I'm like, "Awesome."